Welcome to a special episode of the Fantasy Football Plus Network's Dynasty League Review Show. I'm Bradley Stalder, Jake Fabian, at your booty puds at 16, Fabian Jacob. Jake, I'm excited to be diving into this high stakes, big boys only league. It's an honor to be invited to do these types of things. It's been probably a year since I've reviewed a league, and it's always a great time. So I'm happy to be doing this with you tonight.
Same here, Brad. I am excited to get to take a peek into other people's leagues, and it's always interesting to see because on Twitter we tend to get ourselves enclosed on our own little bubbles, and then those social circles are where we get our leagues from. So anytime you get to pop into somebody else's bubble, so to speak, it's always interesting to get to not only look at those teams, but then try to rank them and critique and maybe even give some praise where deserved.
Praise may be few and far between based on what Jake was sending me late at night last night. He was doing some pre-show meeting prep work and sent me screenshots of we won't reveal the manager, but he was like, what is this guy doing? What is he thinking? He's allowing this player to be this late? My goodness. So we are not here to rat people out necessarily, but we are here to bring some levied criticism. And the way tonight is going to work is Jake and I are going to rank from worst to best. And this is our consensus rankings. We'll reveal the big reveal. I know who both of us ranked. Jake does not know who I ranked, but I will share the consensus, and then I will also share where we had these teams ranked. For Jake, sometimes we rank teams based on, is this a rebuild team? Is this a win now team? Is this like a neutral? I ranked it from like a neutral, like a middle ground, because when you're doing the startup draft, some teams do want to go productive struggle. That is a viable way to build your dynasty league. But for most teams, you always want to keep your options open. At this point, you do not want to just condemn yourself right off the bat to my team sucks, right? Or I know I'm just punting. And the reason why, especially in this league, you don't want to be punting year one is because the entry fee is $500 for this dynasty league. It is not chump change. That's why the league is called Big Boys with a Z only. There are some teams that have decided to go the youth route, and we will discuss those, but in leagues like this, you always want to make sure you have avenues and pathways to success if things fall the right way.
Yep. And from my point of view, I have a very admittedly win now bias in Dynasty. I always think that you get those the currency of draft picks restored a little bit every year. Now, of course, the ultimate goal is to add more value to your roster than you lose. But one of the riskier things that a lot of dynasty managers don't think about is when you convert those picks into prospects or rookies, that's when you take on a whole lot of extra risk. So I just have a lower risk tolerance than some managers is the best way to describe it. But I think I did a pretty good job of trying to manage that bias when ranking here, because of course there are a variety of strategies, and I certainly don't want to condemn someone's team just because it doesn't align with my personal philosophies. So I did my best.
I will condemn. Just to be clear, I will condemn.
There are some teams here that might be worthy of condemnation, but no, I tried to rank these teams from as neutral a perspective as I could find.
A couple things before we get started as well. Pieces of business. Shout out to this league. They invited us to do this review, and we're grateful for this opportunity already. Y'all may agree, disagree, but maybe this will also prompt some conversations in the chat. And that's always the fun part, is seeing how you just drop the bomb in the middle of the chat of, we recorded this, go ahead and listen. And then there's definitely banter back and forth. A couple shout outs though. Y'all are degenerates and need licensed medical help. That's what one of your league mates asked us to let you know about, first of all. Secondly is shout out to JCap86, a handle on Twitter. He has really great sites. It's one of them is called Sleepier, and there it tracks the ownership ADPs of players in the sleeper leagues. It makes a lot of leagues like this a lot of fun, and it takes a lot of the work out of the tediousness that may go into all of the work that maybe you did previously. So check out JCap's work at JCap86. Does a lot of awesome things. And other people are wondering about licensed medical weed. We do have that here in Michigan. However, we will not be providing such a thing on this podcast, nor is it endorsed necessarily by our podcast. And since some of you are Canadian who will be listening to this, we also cannot legally support this. We cannot illegally support it either. Nevertheless, we're getting into the beginning. And Jake, we're going to start at number 12 as promised. But even before we do, we've got to even set the table. I feel like there's so much intro to this league. As I mentioned earlier, it's a $500 entry league, and there is a counter rule in this Dynasty League. If you guys have never played with a counter rule, it's a lot of fun. So essentially, you have 24 hours to counter either side. You only get one opportunity to counter trades, and that optimizes the value. It also allows teams to not get taken advantage of as often. You can optimize your trade, and it also, it's a lot of fun. It's tough for managers who like to take advantage of other managers. They're the ones who don't like it. So, Jake, what is your reaction to a counter rule in these types of Dynasty leagues?
I had never heard of having a counter rule until I saw it in this league. And honestly, it's something that I want to propose to some of my commissioners this coming off season, because the way it's set up, at least in this league, is that it's basically a one shot at countering. You just have one opportunity. Don't forgetting the Eminem lyrics. I was going to make the reference.
You got one shot, one opportunity.
Yeah. Got to capture it and
don't let it slip.
Don't let it slip. There it is.
Arms are ready.
That's the line I was
Vomit on a sweater already. Mom spaghetti.
Yeah. So you have one opportunity, and not only that, but all counters get posted in the league chat. So you're not sending just a private message to the managers involved, which I thought was just an interesting feature of those lowball offers are going to get exposed and reamed out. So I don't know. It sounds like a lot of fun, and it's definitely something I'd be looking to add to some of my leagues.
So it is a $500 entry league, which also means that the first prize is going to be $4,000 for this league. Second place, $1,500. Third place, you get your money back. The roster is one quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end. There are 3 flexes, and there is a super flex. It is 15 bench spots, 3 IR, 5 taxis. And there will be 7 playoff teams. The team with the best record will receive a bye in the first round of the playoffs. Teams 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The best records will get the next 5 seeds. The 7th seed will be determined by the highest point scorer. So that's exciting that there's a lot of opportunities to get into the playoffs, and it's rewarding the highest points for teams. That always sucks when you scored lots of points and you're left for dead in those streets. Nevertheless, this seems like a really fun and engaged league. Any other reactions before we jump into the lowest team on our ladder?
The scoring I looked through was interesting. There's bonuses for the 300-yard passing game. There's a 1-point bonus that goes up to 2 points for 400 yards passing. And I think just looking at some of these teams here that may have influenced managers' decisions more than it should have. And we'll see as we go through here, some of the rushing quarterbacks maybe fell a little bit more than I would have let them personally. But no, it's definitely interesting. And there are those unique scoring quirks that people have to try and adjust to. And so we'll see how they adjusted.
Yeah, 12-team league, super flex, tight end premium, lots of extra flexes. Jake, let's roll. And our number 12 team, this is consensus. I had him at 12. Jake, you had him at 9. is the Gambler. And the Gambler, we love the Gambler. The Gambler is one of my favorite people to play in leagues with. I'm to reveal, to pull back the veil. I've played with a lot of these degenerates in different dynasty leagues throughout my years on Sleeper. But unfortunately, Gambler is in a tough spot. His team is Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Travis Kelce, Jalen Waddle, Kirk Cousins, Devontae Adams, Cole Kmet, Christian Kirk, Keenan Allen, Brian Robinson, Derrick Henry. And then he starts getting into some rookies. The 13-4 rookie, Marvin Mims, 15th round rookie. And other pieces include Antonio Gibson and Jameis Winston. Jake, this is a team that is obviously very aged. The Kirk Cousins, Travis Kelce, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Derrick Henry group is going to be hard to replace. So I think that this is the year that Gambler has to compete. But I don't know. There's pathway for multiple players to just completely fall off the cliff after 2024.
Yeah, and that's definitely a risk with this particular lineup. The Gambler came in at 9th for me, mainly because I think the quarterback tandem that he started the draft off with Mahomes and Herbert in a 6-point passing touchdown league with bonuses for 300 and 400 point performances through the air. There's definitely potential for this team to compete as long as all of the olds manage to maintain their level of production in 2024. But you're right. It's a very fragile lineup, and it's not investing heavily in the 2024 draft. And Brad, remind me, what does their 2025 pick situation look like?
Yeah. So as we scroll down, Gambler does have 2025 first and second and third. No, so not missing any picks for the future, 2025 and beyond.
If things do go wrong for the Gambler, I see outs for them to maybe strip this roster bare of everything except for Herbert and Mahomes and enter a rebuild pretty quickly. There are options for this manager to go different routes. I'm just not sure that they'll have the juice to compete with some of the stronger rosters in this league.
Yeah, this may be a team that after 6 weeks into 2024 reevaluates and says, you know what, these older players, they are producing, but maybe he's 2-4, maybe he's 1-5 at that point. And at that, you got to sell. You got to get your assets. You've got to get something back to these contending teams, because you may be left with a 0 for Keenan Allen. You may be left with a 0 for Devontae Adams. And that is major problems. So there's some holes, and we'll see if Gambler is savvy enough, because we've seen it in the past where the Gambler has been savvy enough to navigate this tight window. But this is an absolute win now team. But from a dynasty perspective, it's going to be hard for the Gambler to improve here in 2025 and beyond. At 12 consensus for me, or 12 consensus for us, 12 for me, 9 for Jake. Any last words before we move on to number 11?
No, I think we dragged him through the mud enough.
Oof. Oh, the Gambler. Okay, at number 11 consensus is 49er Forever Fateful. I had this team at 7. Jake, you had him at 12. Yep. This is a team that began with Josh Allen at the 102, and then Amon-Ra, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Etienne, Brandon Ayuk, Steph Diggs, Sam Howell, Dallas Goedert, Mike Evans, Joe Mixon, Chubb, Mostert, Mingo, Gabe Davis, Khalil Herbert, Gus Edwards, Curtis Samuel, Damian Pierce, Deuce Vaughn, Taysom Hill, Alexander Madison, and then a few other pieces. There is also missing a 2025 second or 2025 first. So missing that first next year. And looking at this team, there are no 2024 rookies that the 49er Forever Fateful picked. This is once again a win now team, but without youth. It's a matter of maybe a couple more years. Jake, What are your thoughts on 49er forever faithful? You had him at 12. This is the worst team in the league.
Yeah, they mortgaged the future, and they don't have a quarterback too. I don't know what the thought process was, but behind Sam Howell in the 7th round of a startup, but he's not going to be the quarter. He got benched at the end of this season, and they're picking 2nd overall. I have yet to see a mock that doesn't have the Commanders selecting one of Drake May or Jaden Daniels. So I don't see a lot of options here, and I don't see a lot of pieces with flexibility to maybe cash out. And in theory, I could see a scenario where maybe a TJ Hawkinson gets traded to a rebuilding type of team early in the year if he's not back from injury or if he's struggling off of his injury, and we could get maybe like an Aaron Rodgers or a Kirk Cousins kind in a package deal sort of situation. Not 1-for-1, obviously. TJ Hawkinson far beyond those old quarterbacks, but when you're in that position where you don't have a quarterback too in a super flex league, that's a very bad spot to be in. I shadowed on there, TJ Hawkinson coming off of injury this late in the year. I have serious concerns about his availability for 2024 to start the year. So we're behind the 8 ball, spending a 3rd round startup pick on him for a win now build. And Diggs showed potential signs of age down the stretch. The Diggs Allen stack has been one of my favorite plays for years in fantasy football, but I don't know. It may be the end there. So it's really hard to mess up a Josh Allen start in a super flex dynasty league, but I'm sorry to say to 49er forever faithful, it's not looking great.
Yeah, that was a major mistake. Sam Howell over Bryce Young, over Matthew Stafford, over Geno Smith, over Derek Carr even. As much as Derek Carr is an unsexy pick, like your pathway to 0 for Sam Howell is so massive compared to any of those other quarterbacks. Scrolling down in the draft board, Russell Wilson went off in this league in the 12th round. That's inexcusable for that type of move to happen. Yeah, and especially not looking at whoever else. No, Jake, we shouldn't be as critical. You know why we shouldn't be as critical? Because he does have a QB2. It's Taysom Hill, right? We missed that one. We should definitely shift the rankings now after that mishap. Jeez, oh Pete. No, sorry for 49er forever faithful. I don't even see enough 49ers on this team, frankly. You have Brandon Ayuk and then
Sam Darnold.
Oh, yeah, Sam Darnold. Yeah, not enough 49ers to uphold can't even uphold your brand, much less the dynasty team that you drafted. All right, enough of ragging on this team. We need to move to consensus number 10, and that is a team that took a different pathway here, and that is the Grinch Snatcher. I had Grinch Snatcher at 9, and you had him at 7. This is a team that leaned into youth. If you looked at the draft board for Grinch Snatcher, you would notice that there are a lot of kickers, and the kickers indicate draft picks. So if we pull up JCap86's website to be able to track the kickers, Grinch Snatcher will be getting the 103 in this draft in the rookie picks, the 104, the 106, 107, 108. And those are the picks he has those picks in the first round. There are no second round picks and nothing in the 301. Yeah. And just looking through, he doesn't have any picks in the 3rd or 4th round. He's very first round heavy. So looking at the non-kicker portions, you've got Brock Purdy. You've got Isaiah Pacheco, Cooper Kupp, Kendre Miller, Darren Waller, Daniel Jones, Cade Otton, J-Mo, Aiden O'Connell, Quentin Johnston, Zeke Elliott, Dontavion Wicks, Bell out of Cleveland, Davis Allen, the tight end out of Los Angeles, Desmond Ridder, Dalvin Cook, Jamal Williams, Michael Thomas, Mason Rudolph. There are some head-scratching picks for a team that should just go all in on youth, except for if you're saying, hey, a couple of these guys are spiking, I'm going to sell them early in the season. I think that's the only pathway for success for keeping a player like Cooper Kupp, Darren Waller, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook on your roster. This is one that I was not optimistic about. And even when you look at what picks Grinch Snatcher is going to get, that's 5 picks, right? But you're starting this year with Brock Purdy, Pacheco, who's a late round, low draft capital running back, Cooper Kupp, Kendrick Miller. Like there's a lot of misses that are possible in this first round of draft picks. Like there's a Quentin Johnston on this team. And my concern is that there's going to be at least, you need all 5 of these rookie picks to hit to be successful in this league. So that's a major concern. And then you're going to be playing for 2025. You've got 49er Forever Faithful. So that's actually a pretty good pick. Hurricane Zion. You've got that one who we have later on. So obviously not a projected top 3 pick. Circle the Wagons is also not a projected top 3 pick, but then his own. So there is like more hope. But as we know, these middling first round draft picks are like coin flips. So I do have concerns that it's just not enough juice for Grinch Snatcher.
Yeah, for me, this was my best effort to look at things from the other side of the aisle, so to speak, and adopt the productive struggle mindset. I had Grinch, but I totally agree with your points about there seems to be a lack of coherency in this draft where we're doing the productive struggle approach, but then investing pretty substantial draft capital in Isaiah Pacheco, or then Cooper Kupp in round 10 of a startup is a great pick, but it doesn't really make sense on this particular roster. Similarly, Darren Waller in the 12th seems like reasonable-ish value, especially in a 2-point tight end premium. But then you consider we're not competing for 2024 or 2025. Is a 30, he'll be 34 in 2026, Darren Waller? Like, I just don't see the logic in some of these picks other than that we're hoping they're productive early in the season and see a value rebound, that Cooper Kupp can be next year's Keenan Allen or something, where he was a late round startup pick that was going for early seconds and late firsts during the peak of his production. But like you said, there's a lot of risk here with Kendrick Miller and Jameson Williams and Quentin Johnston being youthful pieces that are fairly high risk at this point, given that Kendrick Miller couldn't get on the field really at all. And when he did, he struggled to stay healthy this year. Similarly with Jameson Williams, he has yet to have a better game than Josh Reynolds. Like he's really just, the trajectory is not great for JMO or for Quentin Johnston, who had all of the opportunity in the world, could have stepped up and been that guy if he was that guy. I actually really do the Dontavian Wicks pick in round 17. I think that was a great selection. Probably, honestly, I would take Wicks over JMO or Quentin Johnston at this point. The future just seems brighter. But that's a player take apart from Grinch's team here. I think, though, when you consider... Go ahead.
I would have felt better about Grinch's team if he turned like that 107, 108, the Jake Elliott, Jake Moody picks. Like, if he had the 101 and 102 plus his picks, then we'd feel better about it. So, yeah, he's just too spread for me and missing out on definitely the elite prospects, because who's going to go first overall in this draft, right? Is it going to be Marvin Harrison? Is it going to be Caleb Williams? He's missing out. If those are the top 2, he's missing out on those players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my early prospecting hot take on this draft class is that the 103, 104 all the way down to the 107 tier of prospects is not as far behind those top two guys as people seem to think right now. And that I think factored into my evaluation of Grinch's team, that I'm not as concerned that he's missing out, but obviously we'd prefer to have that value of the 101 or 102 over the 103 and 104. But yeah, and having those future firsts gives him a lot of flexibility to maybe try and consolidate into a cup and a first for somebody who gets hurt later in the season, who's a more valuable player, but a contender needs that production, making those kinds of deals. So there is a lot of flexibility with Grinch's approach, and I think it is more or less a decently executed productive struggle.
All right, that is number 10 in our consensus. Number 9 in our consensus is Circle the Wagons. We'll pull up Circle the Wagons team, which consists of Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray. I love those quarterbacks. AJ Brown, Dak Prescott at the 306, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, Terry McLaurin, Ramondre, Cairo Santos, the 1306, a rookie pick. Santos, that translates to the 204 in the rookie draft.
Yep.
And Elijah Mitchell, Keaton Mitchell, and then a bunch of other kickers as well. Israel Abanikanda from New York, a couple tight ends, Cameron Latu and Brenton Strange. So this team I had at 10, you had him at 5. I thought that this team went through ebbs and flows of awesome picks, amazing picks, and then just what were you thinking? Like there was some. I love the Hurts Murray start. I think Murray's undervalued in these dynasty startups right now. To get him at the 209 in a super flex, I think that's a steal. And then AJ Brown is fine. It's a fine pick. But then why go Dak Prescott as well when you can only start 2 of them? You're investing 3 picks in quarterbacks when you can only start 2 of them. 3 of your top 4. You're not going to start one of your top 4 draft capital picks. That is a major doy, in my opinion. And then Kyle Pitts, as much as we have optimism for him, there's pathways for success absolutely for him. His athleticism, his target share, his air yards, all of those things are very good. But we have questions about what Atlanta is going to look like now under Raheem Morris, who the quarterback is. There's a lot of chips in on Atlanta. Kyle Pitts, Drake London here. And then you're taking some shots at the rookies in the 13th round and beyond. I don't mind this 10th round Ramondre. I think that's a good pick. But as I said, it like ebbs and flows between, those are some really strong picks. And then I'm not sure what the logic was behind a couple of these selections.
Yeah, so for me, I'm not bothered at all. In fact, I really love that value on Dak Prescott at the 306. I think that's a must punish the room for letting Prescott fall pick there, because especially in this format where it's 6-point passing touchdowns, it's bonuses for 300 and 400 yard passing games. Dak is one of the elite passing quarterbacks in this league who is, if we had to set a line right now for Dak Prescott versus Joe Burrow, more 300 yard passing games in 2024, I think I might lean Dak, right? It would be close to at the very least. And so when we're looking at a draft where Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence are going in the first round of the startup, Dak Prescott in round 3, sign me up.
It's a great value. I agree. No doubt about that. I think you should have been selected round 2, but like mid round 2, probably. Heck, Trevor Lawrence or Dak Prescott. I know we love the youth of Trevor Lawrence, but we'll get to those selections later. But I agree with you. Dak went way too late, but the play behind this. You're going to have to bench one of Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, or Dak Prescott.
Or you can trade them.
Good.
Yeah, but that's the I think in a best ball league, for example, if there's no waivers or trades and we're misallocating draft capital in this way, in a best ball league, it might be more okay to have three of the first four picks be quarterbacks, but that's a separate conversation. I digress a little there. I think that I just really circle the wagon strategy here of sort of QB hoarding. He didn't go all in on it and just keep pounding quarterbacks. I've seen that happen in drafts before. Some have called that strategy Bush League, but I think it's perfectly valid to load up on those quarterbacks. And then the 49ers forevers of the world who are counting on Sam Howell when they get that bad news in April, there's a big trade opportunity there. I think this 306 startup value on Dak Prescott is the cheapest he's likely to be in the existence of this league, at least until Dak starts to age out and lose value in that sense. So yeah, I don't mind the third quarterback pick. It might set this team back in terms of their ability to compete in 2024, which is going to hurt because they don't have their 25 first. So there is some risk there, but I do think that with the right moves and maneuvering, this is a team that has potential to be a multi-year dominant squad, provided that things pan out with Atlanta and Terry McLaurin gets the quarterback upgrade we're expecting. And there's things as with any team that we need to have happen for it to pay off. But I do think this squad has a ton of potential.
Yeah, and this is a team that it's clearly a tier above the other teams, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You can definitely see that there's pathways for some of these 8th, 9th, 10th round picks to be immediate contributors for a while. And that's, I think, an underrated thing as well in these dynasty leagues is sometimes dynasty managers like to take shots once the chalk is out of the way, taking your shots and your player stances very strongly in rounds that still you can't afford to be wrong on. Ramondre, I like that pick. Terry McLaurin, I like that pick. And then a 15th round Keaton Mitchell, I don't think is too bad either.
No.
All right, we'll keep her moving. We will circle the wagons to the next team. And that is our 8th consensus team. That is Andy RT1. Our 8th consensus team. My 5th team, Jake's 10th team. So this is a team that selected Anthony Richardson 108, then went Breece Hall, Chris Olave, Nico Collins, Michael Pittman, Jordan Addison, Will Levis as the quarterback 2, Chris Godwin, Romeo Doubs, DeAndre Swift at the 10:05, David Montgomery, Roshan Johnson, Jawan Johnson, Greg Dulcich, Devin Singletary, Tyler Lockett, Gerald Everett, J.K. Dobbins, Gardner Minshew, Cam Akers, Chris Rodriguez, Luke Schoonmaker, Zach Wilson, OBJ, Darius Slayton, and still has a 2025 first. Jake, if there was a team that would be similar to teams that I would draft, there's a lot of players on this team that I personally like. Anthony Richardson is one that I'm very high on. I think we've talked about him at length in previous podcasts. Breece Hall, another one I think is a first-round pick in 2024 when it comes to, or we've already done some best ball leagues easily. I think it's easy top 5 pick. And then Nico, I was telling you in the pre-show meeting, I saw Nico Collins go with the 112 in a 2024 draft just recently. So there's a lot of love for Collins, the stacking with Michael Pittman, DeAndre Swift, late value, David Montgomery, late value, Devin Singletary, Tyler Lockett in the 16th round. Like, there's some late values of players that we like. Chris Rodriguez in the 21st round. But I think the Achilles heel for this team is Will Levis any good as the quarterback too?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. As far as now, the main reason that I punished Andy in my rankings, Anthony Richardson ahead of Lamar Jackson. Is that really what we're here to do? You can have a box or you can have a boat. Maybe there's a boat inside the box, but Lamar Jackson is what we hope that Anthony Richardson can be. So to me, that's just an egregious error there. And then having Will Levis as our quarterback too, I have some serious concerns, especially I get the age argument, but Will Levis over guys like Geno Smith and Matthew Stafford went later in the draft. Bryce Young likely has a more secure role, at least. He's going to get more chances, much less likely to be replaced in the draft this year even. I'm not sure that we've gotten anything out of Tennessee saying that Will Levis is for sure the guy in 2024. So there's a lot of risk with him as your QB2. And then there's a lot of sexy names at the skill positions for this team, right? Brees, Olave, Nico Collins, Pittman, Addison. I love a lot of these skill players, but quarterback situation hasn't been great. We can hope for that regression, and I'll probably be betting on it myself. But overall, there's a lot of overvalued youth, I think, in the skill positions here. But it's a solid squad. Really the big thing for me is just that Anthony Richardson over Lamar Jackson pick. And I love Anthony Richardson. I'm going to have a ton of him in 2024 drafts. But for me, the quarterbacks on this team are a glaring weakness.
And just to note, there are no 2024 rookie picks on this team. So it is going to fly into, barring any trades, it's going to fly into 2024 without any rookies. Our next team up is our consensus number 7 team, and that is J Money 91. J Money 91 is the consensus 7. I have it 4. Jake, you have it 8. So let's look at this team. Begins with Justin Jefferson at the 107, Bijan Robinson 206, Fields, Devon Achane, Deshaun Watson as the quarterback 2, James Cook, Jaden Reed, Javonte Williams, Dalton Schultz, Jahan Dotson, Judy, Okonkwo, Sutton, Elijah Moore. Then we get a kicker, Chris Blewett. That's not a good name for a kicker. Hunter Henry, Brandon Cooks, Mac Jones, Dawson Knox, Alec Pierce, Tutu Atwell, Evan Hull, Irv Smith, Tyquan Thornton, Jeff Wilson, Kadarius Toney, and a 2025 first, his own. And this is one of those teams where we're starting to get into the middling. This is one of those middle tier teams. Obviously, there's a lot of questions about what is Justin Fields' future, and getting him in the 3rd round at the 307. You're probably upset that you missed out on the Dak Prescott, but are we going Justin Fields or Jared Goff, who would get an extension? We expect the Detroit Lions to get him an extension. I think the pathway for Fields to be out of the league is stronger than Jared Goff's over the next 3 years.
No, I definitely agree with that point. Fields is a high risk, high reward pick here, where maybe he gets traded to a situation that gives him a better offensive structure to work within. Because I don't know if you guys shout out the QB school on YouTube and on X, but he's done extensive film breakdowns of this Bears offense, and it has been atrocious, to say the least, in the passing game. But some of it is Fields' fault too. And it's hard to ignore. Sometimes he turns down open looks. Sometimes he holds on to the ball too long or just misses open reads. That may be something that is just incurable for him, and he ends up taking a Robert Griffin III type of career arc where it looked really fun for a minute, and then he just slowly fades away. So, Fields in the 3rd round, I don't hate it. I definitely think I would have preferred Tua or Goff. But for me, it's, again, a question of the quarterback too. Deshaun Watson. I understand. Is he
trash? Is he dust? Or is it just that it's Cleveland weather and it's a low pass volume offense? because the offense is designed for Nick Chubb to be the centerpiece. Are we ever going to see Deshaun Watson unleashed as long as Nick Chubb is there?
Yeah, it's been concerning because I bet heavily on a Deshaun Watson bounce back this season, and it didn't even look like it was close to happening. Yes, he was playing hurt for some of the season, but before he was ever hurt, or at least before we knew he was hurt, that is, he was really struggling. It looked bad from both a film and numbers perspective. His throwing motion looked off. That was probably more during his the games when he was trying to play through the shoulder injury. But I don't know, man. I hate to speculate like this, right? Because every part of the numbers guy in me is look at how great this player has been. This is just a rough patch that he'll reemerge from, but it's entirely possible that he got this guaranteed contract and hey, that money, yeah, peace out. Exactly. So that's a very risky pick for me in the 5th round of a startup. I think Deshaun Watson versus Baker Mayfield is a pretty interesting discussion where it looked like Baker was going to be out of the league there for a minute, but now he's looking like he's going to be very desirable in free agency this offseason. And if we had to think, what are the odds that Baker Mayfield has has more NFL years remaining as a starter than Deshaun Watson? It's not too hard to imagine a world where Baker lasts longer than Watson at this point. So I don't know. It's definitely a high risk, high reward roster construction here, where if Watson does return to form and he is that guy again, then we can definitely pay off here with Justin Jefferson and Bijan and Achane, James Cook and Jaden Reed, Javonte. There's a lot of good pieces here that I like a lot, but the quarterback room is leaving a lot on the table for me.
Yeah, this is one that could fall one of two ways. So that's J Money at 7. So middle of the pack. It could fall one way or the other. As I said, I had him at 4. Jake has him at 8. So we meet at the middle at consensus 7. Our consensus 6 for this league is Abe Co 24. I have this team as the number 1 team. Jake, you hate this team as your number 11 team. We see this team completely differently. So let's look at this roster. We've got Jamar Chase at the 109, and then the 204 ends up being the equivalent of the 102 in the rookie picks. And then we got Tua, Trey McBride, Devonta Smith, JSN, and then Cameron Dicker, who is the 109 equivalent. And then we have George Kittle, Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson, Alvin Kamara, Graham Gano, which is the 201, Riley Patterson, which is the 205, Jerome Ford, Rashid Shaheed, Tyler Algier. Man, he is crushing here in the late rounds of Tyler Algier at the 16th, Rashid Shaheed in the 15th, Tank Bigsby, Trey Lance, Jarrett Stidham, Mike White. You've got Kenneth Gainwell in the 22nd round, Jordan Mason, DJ Chark, and his 2025 first. This team, I love the depth that this team has. There's a lot of ways, pathways for success with these rookie picks. It's a nice little balance there. Trey McBride is obviously very hot these days. My opinions of Trey McBride. I am notoriously low on. I'm notoriously low on Trey McBride in dynasty circles, but still, I couldn't help myself. This is extra tight end premium league, and you're getting a Trey McBride here in the 4th round. He's got the youth. He's very, very good player, but yeah, I think that you've got more security with Tua at the end of the 3rd round. A lot, I think, does hinge on Jackson Smith and Jigba in that 6th round as a 6th round pick, because he did not play particularly well his rookie year, but we'll see if Tyler Lockett moves on. We will see what the Seattle Seahawks do at their head coaching. As of right now, it's still vacant, but whoever they bring in, it looks like JSN is probably going to be the wide receiver 2 there with the youth. He played very well at Ohio State. I wonder if we know there was a hand wrist injury right before the start of the season, so that may have played a factor as well. 11th round Alvin Kamara. He could be dust, but he could be valuable. And I think Jerome Ford to win this year, I think is going to be valuable because Nick Chubb is probably not going to be back for the first half of the season for 2024. We'll see, but I like a lot of the late round picks, and I think the early round picks were pretty good too.
Yeah, so I just can't get behind Marvin Harrison Jr. going as essentially the wide receiver 4 in this draft at the 204. And this is speaking to the take I have on this year's rookie class, which is that the 101 and 102 are not that far above and beyond the rest of these rookie picks. For me, as far as dynasty wide receivers go, give me Amon-Ra St. Brown, give me A.J. Brown, give me Puka Nacua even over the 102. I just Marvin Harrison is great. If we're gonna stick with the box versus boat analogy, he's a boat-shaped box, right? He's a darn good box, but there's still a chance he could bust, right? Like we have 18 point per game wide receivers on the board who are maybe 1 or 2 years, in AJ Brown's case, like 4 years older than a Marvin Harrison Jr. And they're known commodities with likely a better situation. If Marvin Harrison, maybe if he goes to Arizona, then we're talking about the nuts right off the bat. But if he ends up in Washington or he ends up in New England to start his career, it could be rough. It could be really rough. And it's very easy for me to see how this 204 pick is regretted after 1 year. And as far as JSN, for me, I'm out. So picking him in the 6th round is just burning a 6th round pick. His rookie comps are not pretty based on his targets per route run and his rookie points per game. We're talking not quite Quentin Johnston bad, but still pretty bad.
Oh, it was bad.
I love Yeah, no, it was. So I don't like that pick. I don't like the Kenny Pickett pick, relying on him as our quarterback 2 here. Word out of Pittsburgh so far has been that Kenny's the guy, but there will be competition. So take that for what it's worth. If you're relying on a guy who's facing legitimate quarterback competition from Mason Rudolph at quarterback 2, that's going to be a precarious position that I just don't like where that puts our roster. So yeah, I just felt like there were some reaches in there that I really couldn't get behind. I love Jamar Chase. I like the value on Tua. I like the value on McBride. Devontae Smith is fine. Kittle that late is fine. But I think this team is definitely going to struggle to compete sooner than later.
Okay, let's take one moment, then we'll finish this team. What if instead of Marvin Harrison Jr., it is Drake May or Jaden Daniels that went at 204? Does that change your opinion of that, assuming that it's Chase at the wide receiver 1, Devonta Smith at wide receiver 2, and then Deontay Johnson at wide receiver 3? But I agree with you about the Kenny Pickett pick. I thought that was probably one of the worst picks. Yeah, if you were planning to go with the quarterback there.
So what was talk me through that scenario again? So we're replacing 204 with a Drake May or Jaden Daniels, assuming it's not Marvin Harrison in this case.
Correct. Yes.
And then
because ahead of him went Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I don't know. Give me Kyler Murray over a Jaden Daniels or Drake May right now. Give me Dak Prescott, probably even Brock Purdy, maybe. I don't know. I like boats. That's all I can say. I like boats over boxes.
I think that's the title.
I totally get that those boxes sometimes. What's that?
Is the title of this league review: boats over boxes.
Yeah, and sometimes the boxes contain super yachts, and that's the risk I run by playing that way generally. But yeah, I don't know. I just see a lot more likelihood that this 204 pick is a player who is not going at 204 or earlier in startups next year.
All right, we will move on to our 5th consensus team, and that is my good friend in this league, Jeff, aka Chewy55. Jake, you have Chewy as your number one team.
Yep.
He started with Lamar Jackson, took Jordan Love at 203, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, DK Metcalf, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, Geno Smith, Luke Musgrave, Calvin Ridley, Aaron Jones. So lots of Green Bay. My man, why am I low on Chewy's team, right? So much Green Bay here. James Conner, Chuba Hubbard, Mike Williams, Zay Jones, Jaleel McLaughlin, Adam Thielen, Tyler Boyd, A.J. Dillon, Miles Sanders, Jonnu Smith, Kareem Hunt, Noah Brown, Kylan Granson, Ryan Tannehill, Tyler Scott. Chewy does have his 2025 first, but does not have any rookies in this upcoming draft. So talk me through, why is this team your number one team, Jake?
Lamar Jackson, 10th overall. That's pretty much it. That's not the only
we'll rest
reason.
It there. We'll rest it there.
Yeah, but that's a strong part of it for me. Lamar Jackson as QB 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a startup is ridiculously good value. Even if it is wild. A 6-point passing touchdown with bonuses for passing yardage, Lamar known for bringing that value with his legs in addition to the passing being his cheat code, less than having the big boom passing games. But he can do that too and give you 102 touchdowns on the ground. He really has a ceiling that's matched only by Josh Allen in fantasy football, and particularly this format. For me, that was the best pick on the entire draft board. And then we get Puka Nacua at the 310. I skipped over Jordan Love there. I like Jordan Love. I'm not sure about taking him.
He doesn't love. Just to be clear, Chewy. No love for love. This is why.
I mean, it's a fine pick.
Jake, we'll take it aside. Sorry. Theo, my friend Theo Greminger, messaged me today. He's like, Bradley, I noticed on your Twitter account that you change it to Djibouti puns. When do you ever make a pun? And I'm like, Theo, what are you talking about? Who are you talking to? So, nevertheless, sorry guys, but you can follow me on Twitter at Djibouti puns. You can follow Jake on Twitter at 16 Fabian Jacob. But yes, no love for love here for Jake toward Jordan Love. And you're going to say this in front of the Packers fan? Come on, Jake.
I really am. Like, I haven't been high on Jordan Love, but down the stretch, he really, really turned it on. And in a 6-point passing touchdown league where really the young weapons that he's surrounded with are only either going to get better or potentially be surrounded with even better. The future is so bright for Jordan Love right now. I can totally see why you might select him at 2, 3, third pick of the second round. It wouldn't be for me, but I think it grades fine as far as the range of outcomes there for Jordan Love. It wouldn't surprise me to see him be a first round startup pick next year if things break the right way, because really, if he were a true rookie who hadn't had to sit behind Aaron Rodgers and came out in his first year as a starter and finished as a top 10 fantasy quarterback, I think we'd see him being given the respect that a CJ Stroud or a Justin Herbert or a Joe Burrow is getting in startup drafts. Yeah. And then Puka at 310 is just insane value to me. I would have taken Puka in the second round if I had the opportunity. He's a stud. Draft capital doesn't matter once we got a whole season of data. Puka to me is definitely a top 5 dynasty wide receiver. And then there's a lot of upside built into the rest of this roster with Zay Flowers and Josh Downs and one of my favorite players just to watch and root for in the NFL, James Conner, who's also been a stud for fantasy football for many, many years. And that offense in Arizona is only going to get better. Of course, with old running backs who are getting paid decent amount of money, there's always that risk of getting cut. I just don't think that's in the cards for James Conner.
Or Aaron Jones was selected the round before, and Jones was amazing down the stretch.
Oh, yeah. I completely glossed over Aaron Jones. But, yeah, there's a ton of value on this roster. And Chuba Hubbard, not even projected as a starter for this team. I
Mike
love
Williams
Chuba
not
Hubbard,
even projected as
Mike
a starter.
Williams.
Jeez,
Yeah,
Pete.
this team has a lot of depth on the bench, not a lot of probably not a lot of upside on the bench, right? Like we're not expecting Mike Williams to come back next year and drastically improve his dynasty value heading into 2025 as a 31-year-old wide receiver, but he can give you some starts if you need them in 2024. So yeah, I just really like the depth and the values that this roster was able to get.
Great. We will move on to our number 4 consensus team. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter at Djibouti Puns, at 16 Fabian Jacob. And if you guys are watching on the YouTube, smash the subscribe button if you like the content. You found this helpful and insightful. Our consensus 4 team is Hurricane Zion. You have Hurricane Zion at 4 as well. I have him at 6. Hurricane Zion was picking out of the 12 spot. And sometimes at the 12 spot, you have dropped a couple tiers in these dynasty startups, and you might feel a little bit of pressure. But there's a lot of strong picks on this squad. Trevor Lawrence and CeeDee Lamb at the 1-2 turn. Goff and Kenneth Walker at 3, round 3, round 4. Rashee Rice, Rashad White, Evan Ingram, Tazi Spears, Jason Myers, the kicker, which is the equivalent of the 111. Derek Carr, Hollywood Brown, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jacoby Myers, Isaiah Likely, Chase Brown, who might have a massive role in Cincinnati next year. In fact, Chase Brown, we'll take an aside here, led all tight ends, running backs, wide receivers in terms of yards per route run this year among players with 15 or more targets. Wild.
Pretty impressive.
Wild stuff. Demario Douglas in the 13th round, I felt was a major steal. Zach Moss in the 16th round is a major steal. Noah Gray, Trey Tucker may have a role next year that's a lot bigger. I like Elijah Higgins. If Trey McBride suffers an injury, I think Elijah Higgins is a very interesting tight end prospect. He was getting a lot of love in Miami before they cut him for some reason. Ayush Shiva in the 20th round could have a massive role if they let Tyler Boyd go and T. Higgins goes. And then Jake Browning, we know what kind of quarterback he can be in the Cincinnati offense. KJ Osborne, the 25th. And then there is no 2025 first round pick, though. So this is a team that, as I said, I had at 6. Jake, you had at 4. Any other reactions you want to give to this team?
No, I just think it's a very solid squad all around. It is very committed to win now. And I think we need to see that next step from Trevor Lawrence in 2024 to make good on that strategy. But in a 6-point passing touchdown format with the passing bonuses, T-Law is the archetype of quarterback that can get you there and benefit from that. Similarly, though, I love the value on Jared Goff. I think he's arbitrage Trevor Lawrence. So we got 2 Trevor Lawrences, paid a lot more for one of them. But hey, we'll take 2 Trevor Lawrences in a super flex league. And then we've got a reliable backup in Derek Carr. So this squad has a decent amount of depth and youth. Love the value on Tyjae Spears. I think he's going to be a major part of what Tennessee wants to do next year. Same thing with Kenneth Walker and Rashad White. And dynasty running back values fluctuate wildly all the time, but the trick is generally to just draft good players. And Rashad White as a runner still has some serious question marks, but the way their offense is operated by using him in the passing game as an extension of their running game proved to be pretty effective for that squad. Hopefully Baker Mayfield is back and continues to use White in that check down role. But Rashee Rice, Marquise Brown, both guys who can fill in admirably as wide receiver 2 and 3. So yeah, this is definitely a solid squad. The risk here is that whoever we take at the 111, we're really hoping they hit, because Hurricane Zion has no 25 first or second. If this year doesn't pan out, we could be in a bit of trouble.
It could be in a bit of trouble. That's Hurricane Zion, my 6th, Jake's 4th. Our consensus 3 team is K.E. Hartley. Let me pull up the roster. K.E. Hartley 9. Can't forget the 9 at the end. I have him at 8. Jake, this is your second ranked team. He starts Joe Burrow, then Christian McCaffrey, the 208, Taylor at 305, Mark Andrews, DJ Moore, Saquon Barkley at the 608. That feels a little late for Barkley.
Yep.
Bryce Young at the 705, I think, is a good value. He has job security, and he's got the quarterback whisperer, Canales, who resurrected Geno Smith's career, resurrected Baker Mayfield's career, and now is working with Bryce Young in Carolina. I think there are questions about what offensive pieces they're going to surround Bryce Young with, but I mean, this is a good sign. They bring in the right person to help turn around Bryce Young. Matthew Stafford as well was a great value as probably your quarterback 1, but he's not going to bust for you. He's probably going to give you quarterback 15 pretty much every week moving forward. And so I think a lot hinges on Bryce Young's development, and then in a couple rounds, Michael Mayer's development. So you've got a lot of youth, but you've also got a lot of older players like your Austin Eckler, who could be absolute zero dust, or he just needs a fresh start and maybe a healthy start in a new Chargers offense run by Jim Harbaugh. And then you've got DeAndre Hopkins on this team. You got both Palmers. You got Josh Palmer and Trey Palmer. He was like, am I going to pick one Palmer? No, I'm going to take my two Palms. I'm going to take my Josh and Trey Palmers. And one is a dog and one gets eaten by dogs. I'm not a big fan of Josh Palmer, but Trey Palmer, I'm a huge stan of. Darnell Mooney in the 18th round is an absolute steal. I think Jelani Woods is a nice pick as well. And then there is a 2025 first for this team. I like this team, and it's clear that there's a reason why it's this high. I'm surprised, frankly, that in doing a little bit of reflection that at 3, I had him at 8, but maybe there's when you select a Christian McCaffrey in the dynasty leagues, like you're winning now and you need to win now. And I think this is a team that is built to win now and has some pieces that have symmetrical upside. If they hit the right way, this team could be an absolute juggernaut. I'm surprised that in doing a little, maybe I miscounted something in K.E. Hartley, but still our third consensus team.
Yep, I really like this squad. Starting off with Joe Burrow, I might have gone Jalen Hurts ahead of him, but I can't gripe with getting Joe Burrow 5th overall. So that to me was a fine pick. And loading up, my favorite picks of this draft were probably Matthew Stafford in round 8, I think is a massive value. I think Stafford still has 3 or 4 years left in the tank if recent quarterback aging curves are to be believed. Stafford for another couple of years of fringe QB2, QB1 type production, even if Bryce Young doesn't pan out, and we're still pretty optimistic, at least I am, that he will. Ironically, one of the only examples of a rookie quarterback who has had as bad a season as Bryce Young's rookie year and then gone on to have success was Matthew Stafford. It's good to have that locker room presence here, Key Hartley.
Some mentorship on this fantasy team, right?
Exactly. But I also love the Mark Andrews pick in the 4th round as tight end 5 off the board.
That's a great value.
Yeah, that to me is an amazing value and a 2-point tight end premium. Yeah, we have a core of some studs here with Burrow, CMC, JT, Andrews, DJ Moore, Saquon. Could anywhere would be really better than the Giants were this year. Either he stays in New York and has that franchise icon status where they're just going to feed him no matter what, or he goes somewhere else and he's in a better offense with more touchdown opportunities. Yeah, I think this was a very, very strong top half of the draft here for Key Hartley.
And even the bottom half, there's some real nice pieces that could fill in as flex spots moving forward. All right, we've got 2 spots left, and the second spot in our consensus rankings, this is also my number 2 team, and Jake, your 6th team, Eto Mastic, Etomasic 3. Began with CJ Stroud at the 103, Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson, and then dipped into the 4th round, double dipped Dalton Kincaid, and then Tyler Bass, which is the equivalent of the 105. Brandon McManus, which is the equivalent of the 110 in the 7th round. George Pickens, Matt Gay, which is the equivalent of the 112. Then Aaron Rod 112 in the 9th round. I think that's pretty good value, you know. And then Aaron Rodgers, Zach Charbonnet, Jalen Warren, Jason Sanders, which is the equivalent of the 202. Tucker Kraft, Aldrick Ross, which is the equivalent of the 207. Brandon Aubrey, which is the 208. Blake Groupie, the 212. Jalen Hyatt, A.T. Perry, and then Hooker, Rondell Moore in the 24th round. That's wild that it was that late. Okay. And then, yes, a 2025 first round pick. All right.
Yep.
So I like this team a lot. You had him just a little bit lower, maybe a mid-tier team. I agree with I agree that there's pathways for the rookies to not necessarily pan out, but there's also, you have to love what CJ Stroud, Jahmyr Gibbs did this past year as rookies. And then I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be an underrated value. A 9th round Aaron Rodgers is not going to be too bad. He'll give you at least one more year, and then you can figure it out from there.
Yeah, for me, this team started off poorly with the CJ Stroud pick at 103. Why? I get it. He's young. He's fun. The Texans are exciting. They could get even better weapons next year and all this stuff. But CJ Stroud over Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud over Jalen Hurts. I could see the argument for CJ Stroud over Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's been, relatively speaking, disappointing, for as disappointing as a top 8 quarterback can be. But I couldn't get past that pick, I think, when I was ranking this team. I really tried, and they are loaded on rookie draft picks. I think that just the odds of missing on a substantial number of those picks is so unlikely. When you have that many darts to throw, you just massively increase your odds of getting some of those big hits. So I think this team is maybe not positioned to compete in 2024, almost certainly not, but they are set up well to take this high variance approach of gathering a handful of darts, especially in that 2nd round. This is a deep rookie class, and there will be values in that the 202, 207, 208, 212, maybe even into the 3rd round of rookie drafts, which isn't often that we say that. But yeah, I think this team has a small chance of becoming a juggernaut just because of the way they've built. But there are a couple picks in here that I just couldn't get behind. The Stroud one really was the one I just couldn't get the taste of that out of my mouth.
Jake is triggered by CJ Stroud. Let it be known he is a CJ Stroud hater, and this will not be tolerated on this podcast. How dare you hate on CJ Stroud? No, at that point, the hype is so high for CJ Stroud. I agree with you that we want to see year 2 in the offense. We want to see him with all of his weapons, and they're going to play a much more difficult schedule in 2024. They played one of the easiest schedules here this year, and they played well, really. So you got to give them credit where credit's due, but they're going to play a much more difficult schedule. And we saw how Jalen Hurts took a step back with a new offensive coordinator in a more difficult schedule, in a similar pathway for CJ Stroud for 2024. He's going to probably get a new offensive coordinator. Slowick is probably going to go somewhere else. We'll see. That's not official. There's no word. I don't think Slowick has signed with anyone yet, but he's definitely a head coach candidate for the last 2 openings. And then the schedule is going to get much more difficult. So we could see maybe some shootouts that exist, but also teams are going to have a full year of film on CJ Stroud that they'll be able to plan for, prep for, and the schedule is going to be more difficult. Stroud at 103, I get it that's not as ideal. However, the hype is there, Jake. Come on. Don't be such a hype deflator.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, we've got by process of elimination, y'all have figured out that our number one team is I3 IG 13 IG. This team is the consensus number 3 for both of us, but so he's 3 for both of us, but he's the consensus 1 based on how we both saw this team beginning with the 111. That's going to be either Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr. most likely. Then going Sam Laporta in a massive tight end premium league at the 202. Tyreek Hill at 311. Tank Dell, who's a beast. T. Higgins at the 511. Baker Mayfield, a great value at the 610. David Njoku at the 602. Debo at the end of the 8th round, Jake. Holy guacamole. Yep. Jake Ferguson in the 8th round. In Tony Pollard in the 10th round. Like, Tony Pollard in the 10th round? Are you what? Holy bucket. It's not like Tony Pollard died. Jeez, oh Pete's. He's dead to some after this year. Zamir White at the 111. The upside is just so massive for Zamir White if Josh Jacobs moves on to get him at the end of the 11th round. Russell Wilson. Wow. Just the value here is massive. He may not, I3 IG 13 IG may not need to take a quarterback at 111. He may not take Caleb Williams. He may take Marvin Harrison with getting Russell Wilson in the 12th round. We'll see where Russ lands in free agency, but that could be the whole crux of this entire team. Russ in the 12th. Michael Wilson, I love Wilson, and we think Kyler is going to be another year removed from the ACL tear. That's going to be great for Arizona. Khalil Shakir, Tyler Conklin, Ty Chandler has a possibility for being the RB1 in Minnesota. Not that that's uber exciting, but in the 16th round, it was Ty Chandler down the stretch, yeah? So
yeah.
This is the number one team, the depth, the value, the possibilities that exist with this team. Yeah, it's we both ranked them 3, but there was no team that we saw consensus higher than this one.
Yep. Yeah, and for good reason. This manager really took advantage of the tight end premium, getting Sam Laporta very early. I can't really complain about getting Sam Laporta even at the 202 and in a 2-point tight end premium, but especially David Njoku and Jake Ferguson in the mid rounds. I think those were very solid values, but the icing on the cake for me were Debo and Russell Wilson. Tony Pollard too, just some really great values to be had for sorry. You know who you are.
Everyone knows who that manager is. So I will also unveil, this is the team that invited me to co-manage, to be able to see inside the league and everything. And he messaged me and he's, hey, man, so we were in a league together before, and I think I said some things that I shouldn't have said to you in the chat. He apologized to me, and it was great. And I'm a good sport about it. I don't take things too personally, me, Jake. I just thought it was funny how like the world turns. You interact with so many people in this space, and you eventually run into. I think he had sent me a trade offer that I was none too pleased about. And I said something along the lines of, I think something's missing, or maybe there's something, maybe you sent this in error. And he was none too pleased that I was trying to give him an out, and he interpreted it as maybe sarcastic, whatever. Nevertheless, it's beautiful how these things work out, how some tensions are now relieved, and hopefully he has moved on. But this is a team that's going to be competitive, not only this year, but for a long time. Still having the 2025 first. Yes, not drafting in the 2024 class outside of the Justin Tucker pick at the beginning, but really those picks in the 17th, 18th round, etc., are going to be, I think, third round picks if I'm looking at this correctly. So, yeah, it looks like, they're third round picks. There's some opportunity for finding your next Tank Dell or Puka Nakua, things like that. But even without those, this is a very, very solid team.
Yeah, for sure. And I really think personally that it's a sharp strategy to, when you're in those later rounds of the startup, start gobbling up those late round rookie picks when you can, because it's okay to take the Ty Chandlers and such, but the value really starts to dry up quickly. And sometimes you end up with Devontae Parkers and those types of players who, even in a best case scenario, they're right. Yeah, they're just fodder clogging your bench. Start throwing darts at something that could maybe be the next Puka, the next Tank Dell, the next whomever. Fill in the blank here. Yeah, I think that's just a really sharp strategy to load up on those rookie picks in the late rounds.
All right, we will just do one last recap. Once again, I'm Bradley. This is Jake, and we'll recap. The 12th team in our consensus was the Gambler. 11th was 49er Forever Fateful. 10th was Grinch Snatcher. 9, Circle the Wagons. 8, Andy RT1. 7 was J Money 91. 6 was Abe Co 24. 5 was Chewy 55. 4 was Hurricane Zion. 3 was Ken Hurtley. 2 was Eto Masick 3, and our number one consensus team, I3IG 13IG, in the big boys only 12-team Dynasty PPR tight end premium Superflex League. Boys, it was an absolute pleasure doing the review. Jake, it's always great jumping on with you. Any other last words before we end tonight?
Just thank you to the league for inviting us in and giving us this little look inside of your guys' perspectives and player takes. I'm sorry for going hard on y'all for fading Lamar Jackson. Sometimes you got to stand up for your principles. Thank you for the chance to do that tonight. And always a pleasure talking football with you, Brad.
All right. Until next time, everyone, good luck in the Dynasty Fantasy Football streets.